In 1945, the United States stood alone as the world's only nuclear power, a monopoly that lasted exactly 4 years. On August 29, 1949, the Soviet Union detonated First Lightning, RDS-1, at its Semipalatinsk test site in Kazakhstan, shattering American nuclear supremacy and igniting a 45-year arms race that would bring humanity to the brink of extinction. What followed was a terrifying mathematical progression. By 1964, 5 nations possessed nuclear weapons. By 1986, the global arsenal peaked at a staggering 70,300 nuclear warheads, enough to destroy human civilization dozens of times over. Today, in 2026, that number has plummeted to approximately 12,321 warheads held by 9 nations. Yet paradoxically, the world may be entering a more dangerous era than the Cold War itself. The old US-Soviet duopoly has fractured into a multipolar nuclear landscape where China is rapidly expanding, rogue states like North Korea have joined the club, and the arms control treaties that kept the peace for half a century are collapsing. This is the story of how nuclear weapons spread across the globe and why, despite dramatic reductions, we may be less safe than ever. The Manhattan Project gave America a 4-year head start, but Soviet espionage dramatically shortened the timeline. While American scientists toiled in secrecy at Los Alamos, a network of Soviet spies, Klaus Fuchs, a German physicist working on the Manhattan Project, Theodore Hall, a 19-year-old Harvard prodigy, David Greenglass, and Julius Rosenberg systematically transmitted critical atomic secrets to Moscow. Fuchs alone provided detailed blueprints of the plutonium implosion design used in the Nagasaki bomb. When the Soviets tested their first atomic bomb in 1949, years ahead of Western intelligence predictions, President Truman was shocked. Stalin, meanwhile, had bet the Soviet Union's economic future on catching up. He mobilized thousands of scientists, constructed massive uranium enrichment facilities, and diverted resources from a war-ravaged economy. The architect of the Soviet program was Igor Kurchatov, who led a parallel Manhattan Project under conditions of secrecy and paranoia that made Los Alamos look like an open university. The Soviet bomb, Joe 1 as Americans called it, was nearly identical to Fat Man, a testament to how effective their espionage had been. Soviet physicists like Andrei Sakharov, who later designed the hydrogen bomb before becoming a dissident, were world-class talents in their own right. The arms race that followed defied all logic except the twisted calculus of mutually assured destruction. The United States peaked at approximately 31,225 warheads in 1967 under President Lyndon Johnson, deploying everything from massive 25-megaton B-53 bombs to tiny tactical nuclear artillery shells. The Soviet Union reached its zenith in 1986 with roughly 40,000 warheads, the largest nuclear arsenal in history, under Mikhail Gorbachev, just before he began pursuing glasnost and disarmament. To put these numbers in perspective, the United States alone once possessed enough nuclear firepower to deliver 50 tons of TNT-equivalent explosive for every person on Earth. The Soviets built Tsar Bomba in 1961, a 50-megaton hydrogen bomb, 3,300 times more powerful than Hiroshima, that created a mushroom cloud 40 miles high and a fireball visible 620 miles away, so powerful that even the Soviets were terrified and never built another. Both sides developed elaborate nuclear triads of land-based intercontinental ballistic missiles, ICBMs, submarine-launched ballistic missiles, SLBMs, and strategic bombers, ensuring that even if one leg was destroyed in a first strike, the other 2 could retaliate and annihilate the attacker. The doctrine was called MAD, Mutually Assured Destruction, and it kept an uneasy peace through sheer terror. Then, suddenly, the impossible happened. The arms race reversed. The collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991 ended the Cold War, and both superpowers began dismantling thousands of warheads annually. By 2026, the United States holds approximately 5,177 total warheads, or 3,700 in military stockpile, 1,477 retired awaiting dismantlement, while Russia possesses roughly 5,459 warheads, or 4,309 in military stockpile. Together, they still command 86% of the world's total nuclear inventory and 83% of stockpiled warheads. Only about 3,812 are deployed globally, mounted on missiles or stationed at bomber bases, and approximately 2,100 are on high alert, meaning they can be launched within minutes. The rest are in storage or reserve. This represents an 82% reduction from the 1986 peak, one of the most successful disarmament efforts in history. Yet both nations continue massive modernization programs. The United States is spending $1.7 trillion over 30 years to upgrade its nuclear triad, while Russia has developed hypersonic missiles like the Avangard and nuclear-powered cruise missiles, Burevestnik, that defy traditional defenses. The new nuclear club, how 5 became 9. Britain, France, and China joined the nuclear club with a mix of prestige, security concerns, and great power ambitions. The United Kingdom tested its first atomic bomb in 1952, Operation Hurricane, and built a modest arsenal, currently standing at 225 warheads, 120 deployed, all submarine-based Trident missiles. France, determined to maintain strategic independence from both NATO and the Warsaw Pact, tested its first bomb, Gerbos Blue, in Algeria in 1960 under Charles de Gaulle, now holding 290 warheads deployed across submarines and aircraft. China became the 5th nuclear power in 1964 after receiving Soviet technical assistance, later withdrawn during the Sino-Soviet split, then developed its own indigenous program. China's arsenal remained relatively small and defensive for decades, until now. Between 2020 and 2025, China's stockpile has exploded from 350 to 600 warheads, a 71% increase, with U.S. intelligence projecting 1,000 warheads by 2030. Satellite imagery reveals China constructing hundreds of new missile silos in its western deserts, a dramatic shift from its historical minimum deterrence posture to something approaching parity with the US and Russia. Then came the nuclear outliers, the nations that built the bomb outside the rules. In 1968, the Treaty on the Non-Proliferation of Nuclear Weapons, NPT, created a global bargain. The 5 existing nuclear states, US, USSR, UK, France, and China, would work towards disarmament, while non-nuclear states pledged never to acquire weapons. But 4 nations defied this order. India tested its first peaceful nuclear explosive, codenamed Smiling Buddha, claiming it wasn't a weapon, though everyone knew otherwise. It now holds 180 warheads, up 20% since 2020, driven by rivalry with China. Pakistan, terrified of Indian nuclear superiority, launched a clandestine program led by scientist A.Q. Khan, who stole centrifuge designs from the Netherlands, testing its first bomb in 1998, shortly after India's second test, now possessing 170 warheads. Israel has never officially acknowledged its arsenal, maintaining a policy of nuclear ambiguity, but is widely believed to hold 90 warheads produced at its Dimona reactor in the Negev desert, an open secret since whistleblower Mordecai Vanunu exposed the program in 1986. And North Korea, the world's most isolated state, tested its first nuclear device in 2006 and now has an estimated 50 warheads, up 233% since 2020, though the quality and deliverability of these weapons remains uncertain. Most alarmingly, the global military stockpile of usable nuclear weapons is now increasing again after 30 years of decline. Russia is developing apocalyptic weapons like Status 6 Poseidon, an autonomous nuclear-powered torpedo carrying a 100-megaton nuclear warhead designed to create radioactive tsunamis and render coastal cities uninhabitable for centuries. North Korea's Kim Jong-un has explicitly abandoned restraint, conducting missile tests at an unprecedented pace and threatening preemptive nuclear strikes. And Pakistan and India, two countries that have fought 4 wars and nearly went to nuclear war in 2019 during the Pulwama crisis, are building tactical nuclear weapons meant for battlefield use, dramatically lowering the threshold for nuclear conflict.